So my project is looking at the implementation and assessment of a best practice framework for development of sustainable energy communities in Ireland. So I was lucky enough to have a case study at the very start of this project. So as you can see here from the logo, the case study is Eimear Island. So I'll quickly just go through the format of the presentation. So I'm going to give you a background to the project, outline the research questions, the aims, the methodology, the proposed framework, the current status of the project, where I am right now, talk about the next steps I'm going to take, and my proposed contribution. So the background to the project, this is a very early stage research. So I started this project about 4 months ago. And at that time, I was given a case study in Eimear Island. So Eimear is one of the Aran Islands. I'm sure most people in the room know this. So it's Irish-speaking island, and it's a tourism hub for Irish culture and heritage. So what's interesting about Eimear is that it's actually got a really small population. So it's got a population of about 300. So in the end of the 19th century, it had about 2,500 people, and since then it's reduced to 300. What makes Eimear such a good case study is the fact that it is a small accessible population, but it also has a larger kind of catchment area in terms of knowledge dissemination. It gets about 100,000 visitors per year in terms of tourism. So that's a very, very large amount of people to be able to educate. Some of the current problems in Eimear, much like Ireland, Eimear is completely dependent on imported energy. But Eimear has to import its energy from the mainland Ireland, which makes it marginally more expensive. The next point. A lot of the housing stock in Eimear needs further retrofitting, and also it has drinking water quality issues. So the groundwater table in Eimear is oversalinated. Some more context to the project. A couple of years ago, the Aran Islands Energy Cooperative released a press release saying that they were going to try and achieve energy independence for the Aran Islands by 2022. So some of the elements of that they were going to look at was energy storage, microgrids, smart buildings, and informatics and communication. So these are all elements that my project are hoping to look at. Further on from that, I'm not sure if any of you heard in the media, Paddy Crowe from Eimear on the radio talking about their water resource issues. So over the summer months, they only have about 8 hours of water a day. This is their peak season for tourism, so affecting their tourism, which is their highest revenue, quite badly. So before I continue, I'll just give a definition of what sustainable energy communities are. This definition is taken from the SCI guidelines on how to create a sustainable energy community. So essentially, a sustainable energy community is one where all the stakeholders work together to create a sustainable energy system. The research questions is how can best practice international implementation of SECs inform the development of one in Eimear? Also, what are the enablers and barriers to implementing one in Eimear? The aim, so it's to gather information on successful SECs internationally and to assess whether the methodologies used are appropriate for implementation in Eimear. And the methodology. So I'm beginning by looking at other SEC frameworks internationally. So I'm going to I've started implementing a framework which I'll be assessing throughout the project. This has all been done in Eimear. At the same time, I'll be undertaking mixed method analysis of community attitudes to renewable energy technologies. All of this will be put into an action research project. So basically what the action research project is I design the framework, I implement it, I look at whether or not it works, and I make changes to improve it. So this is one of the existing examples of frameworks. So there are many different frameworks internationally, but this is the SCI framework. This is guidelines for sustainable energy communities. So much like other management processes, it's a 5-step process, which has commit, identify, plan, take action, and review. So I know the text on that is quite small, so just to give you a better idea. They propose that this is done over 5 years. The length of my project is going to be 3 years. So I'm proposing that I will get the project going and I'll help the community be able to continue the rest of it themselves. So the commitment stage, which I'm in now, I'm in month 4. Commitment stage is about 6 months. As you can see there on the timeline. The identify stage is from about 6 months to 14 months. The plan stage is from 14 months on to 24 months. The take action stage, they the proposed starts at about 14 months, and then you review the process the whole way throughout. So this, again, is from the SEC, the SCAI Guidelines for Sustainable Energy Community. This is kind of a diagram of what makes up a community. So on the inside, you have the orange, which is the community. The outside, you have the different elements of the community, like industry, transport, and then green is what actually powers the community. There's the elements of the community: transport, residential, industry, education, and that needs to be powered by energy efficiency and renewable heat and electricity. So the proposed framework, again, same, the commit is months 0 to 6, the identify is months 4 to 9, plan is months 5 to 12, takes action 6 to 24, review the whole way throughout the process. So what's novel about my research is that I'm suggesting that there's community engagement throughout the whole process. In the SCA guidelines, they say that community engagement should happen at stage 4, but I'm proposing that it'll happen much on at the end, earlier on at the end of the commit and at the start of the identify stage. So this is the current status of the project. So as I said previously, I'm in month 9. So we've established the governance on the island. That was existing. There was already a co-op on the island. So the co-op Cuivan Cho is the Aran Island, is the Inisheer co-op. So they naturally took governance over the project. That is completed. The next step was to designate an SEC champion. So Paddy Crowe was the manager of the co-op on the island, so he volunteered to be the SEC champion. So his roles have been identified. Following that, we had to get a community project manager. So Eugene Houlihan volunteered for that. These were completed in the 2nd month of the project. Next was to identify the stakeholders. So there are many different stakeholders, but all of these are outside of Inisheer and these are within Inisheer. Ones in Inisheer include householders, schools, the co-op, the HSE, and kind of churches and other existing community groups. Ones outside of Inisheer is the co-ops of the islands of Ireland, the Galway County Council, Board Fáilte, SCAI, Board East Gabara, and Rina Gaeltacht staff. So again, something new that this project is adding is the proposal for an SEC mentorship program. So I've already met with other communities that have actually successfully implemented community renewable energy projects. The idea is that when a new community decides to put together an SEC, that an existing SEC that has been successful will mentor them throughout the project. So that's something that's currently being put in place as well. Also being worked on at the moment is the charter. So that's in progress. So what we have at the charter is we've kind of draft stage outline the vision, the mission, and the targets. So we're working on the targets still at the moment. So this will be disseminated to stakeholders in a couple of months and hopefully signed off on at that time. So the vision, as I said, which is currently being updated, is to create a sustainable island to make Inisheer more self-reliant. It's also intended that making living on Inisheer more attractive will maintain the indigenous population and reduce people moving off the island and then kind of protect its heritage. The mission, so it's to create a long-term sustainable energy community in Inisheer by 2022 and to make sure that it's consistent with the heritage of Inisheer. So the reason that we've said long-term sustainable is that my project is proposed to enable the community to continue to work themselves after the end of my project. So these are different elements of how I'm going about kind of engaging the community. So we're publishing a community leaflet. We've published a profile of myself and of the project. We'll be having public information meetings in the coming months. We'll be creating an online forum and a creation of a novel SEC mentorship program where the two groups meet and mentor each other. So these 2 stages are in progress. So this is identifying the sustainable energy zone. So what the sustainable energy zone is a geographic zone where work will take place and surrounding areas the information will be disseminated to. So the primary zone is Inisheer. As I said previously, Inisheer has a population of 300. So using existing networks within the island, the intermediate zone will be the Aran Islands. So there will be a lot of information flow and some projects will be taken on all 3 islands as well. The population of the Aran Islands is 1,300. And then there is another existing network between all of the islands of Ireland, the population of which is 3,000. So that will be the next the next kind of intermediate zone 2. And finally, it's proposed that the information and findings will be disseminated to the periphery zone, which is Ireland. That's just the beginning. So the next step for my project in the commitment phase is to undertake stakeholder meetings and sign the charter. So I'm kind of finding this stage a little bit difficult. There's been great, Beyond said, great enthusiasm at the start of the project, but jumping from the end of the commitment stage to start identifying has been quite slow. So we're still trying to get stakeholders and disseminate information to them and get stakeholder meetings together. The next is to start securing community engagement and assessing their acceptance of renewable energy technologies. The identify stage, start gathering baseline data to create an energy master plan. So this might sound a lot easier than it is. I've been ringing around, I've been trying to find out where the information is, but unfortunately a lot of the work so far, although it's been great work, it has been quite ad hoc, and there's been no data put together, a gathering of information on what has been done, and a lot of the upgrades have not been recorded as they were done. I'm also looking at assessing the impact of education for sustainable development on the successful implementation of SEC. So I've already done some pilot studies in Galway, and I've gone in and done some workshops with school children. I've completed the pre-testing, and I'm going to be undertaking post-testing after to see what effect educating children had on energy use in the home. So the output that I'm hoping would be to inform Irish and European policymakers on suitable frameworks for their small communities, to provide a best practice framework for small rural communities, and a suitable methodology for engaging with communities and increasing acceptance of SECs. That's the project. If you have any questions. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that island in particular, but the mining community is quite different in its makeup, both in sort of, I suppose, human perceptions, but also in the technologies that communities use in an island community compared to mainland Ireland. How transferable is this project going to be? Have you identified how transferable are the outputs from this to mainland Ireland? Because there may not be certain technologies that can be used in an island community that could be used in mainland Europe that may offer greater savings or sustainability in a mainland context.
Well, this project is less about the technology and more about the framework. So looking at a small community and seeing how a framework can be implemented and adapted. So not necessarily about the technologies that are introduced, but about the framework itself. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the idea is that we would create a framework that would give freedom and have people establish themselves what type of technology would work where. Any other questions?
Sorry, did you say it started to have funding?
Did I have funding? No, not for the whatever work's going to be done on the island. So there is SEI funding for the better energy communities and things like that, but there isn't actually funding for this at the moment. So what the project is trying to do is to try to make whatever funding is applied for, whatever work is, try and make it more organised. But unfortunately, there's not, like a lot of the SCI guidelines, they say that things should be planned and things should be less ad hoc, but yet a lot of the grant systems that come out encourage people to scramble for funds and do whatever work they can get done as quickly as they can, because the grant system says 6 months, your work's done, whereas you don't necessarily have time to plan, and so it doesn't really fit in.
Are any of the energy companies, the larger energy companies on those islands, on those 3 islands, do they have any?
Not at the moment. There's no plans at the moment, so that's all part of the research. So there are talks of there being kind of small microgrids being put in there and wind turbines and things like that, but they're in a very early discussion stage at the moment. Yeah, but hopefully something will come of it. As I said, I'm only a few months in at the moment. There's been an awful lot of interest in the project itself, I suppose because of the unique nature of Inisheer and the fact that it's more people-based.
I'm just wondering if you can tap into, some of the European funding, the H2020 funding.
Yeah, we're looking at that, and we're also looking at maybe the next round of the Northern Periphery Programme. maybe looking at that. And there is some special funding out there for.
Sorry, I'm not going to hear about GIT and involved in projects like this, but the Martin King in the university in Galway is into this space. I think in the energy expert. He wasn't UCC. He might be someone more talking to him, because he's doing a lot of work with electricity and people like that. You know.
Okay, I might chat to you about that after.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I think we'll wrap up. Thanks very much.